I love to.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 10 News. I invite the viewers from different parts of the world, some from South Africa, there's some from India, there's some from Australia, and a couple from Malaysia who had connected with me and wanted to hear the story here. With us, we have a wonderful lady, a doctor, 47 years in the medical profession, Dr. Maryam Navsa. Welcome, Maryam. How are you? Can you hear me, Maryam?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clearly.
Okay, okay. How are you? Welcome. I've just
I'm
went through the
well.
introduction. I'm not sure if you heard that, but
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
okay, good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. We're having a beautiful
Good,
sunny day
good.
here in Cape Town. Yeah, weather's amazing.
Excellent, excellent. Maryam, I'm actually going to deep dive straight into the subject because we've got a lot to cover, and I want to make sure that we do give as much as we can for the audience. Before we deep dive, can you just briefly talk a little bit about yourself and what got you into this area of universal law and why?
Yeah. No, thank you, David. So yeah, as you know, I'm currently in medical practice. I've been here for quite a while. But if I look back on my childhood, joy and happiness wasn't commonplace in our home. And
Hmm.
my parents really struggled with their own challenges, and this had a really huge impact on my life. I really grew up as a very angry, resentful child and young adult. And even after qualifying as a medical doctor, I just somehow felt this ongoing void. I just couldn't find meaning in what I was doing. I just never had a sense of fulfillment. And this unfortunately spilled over into the rest of my life, my relationships, my children, um, my spouse, and even my patients. And the relationship with myself, I was really, really harshly critical with myself as a young person. But you reach a point of saturation, and it got to a point where I realized that I needed to change. I couldn't continue looking at the pain in my children's eyes, and in my family's eyes. And part of my search for happiness actually led me to the laws of the universe, and it had a profound impact on my life. Yeah, changed my relationships. Yeah, I was able to shift out of resentment and anger and really and truly appreciate my parents and their purpose in my life. And of course, I began to understand how I was unconsciously resisting these laws.
Mm.
And that it was amazing. And then able to start shifting my relationships through an understanding and application of these laws. So since then, I've essentially become quite fascinated. And I've also developed a mastermind based on these laws. And, I really want people to understand that these laws are there. They whether we want to believe in them or not, but that all we need to do is understand them and then start aligning ourselves, aligning our lives with the laws. Yeah, so that's in a nutshell how I got to be involved.
Fabulous, fabulous. Welcome again. And as many are uncertain because I missed this part, yes, as founder and facilitator of the Natural Laws of the Universe Mastermind, Miriam also has published a book. Would you like to talk a little bit about the book, please?
Yeah, so I had two books, but the one book that is a bit close to my heart is entitled Overcoming Shame, Blame, and Pain. And it essentially
Mm-hmm.
tells the story of my journey of overcoming pain and getting beyond blame and assuming responsibility. And it tells not only my story, but the story of an individual who's gone through addiction. And as society is one to look at one person, people would look at me and say, "My God, she's got it all together. What a successful life!" And look at the
Mm.
addict very differently, and yet we share in the very same pain, going through the very kind of pain and blame that was common to both our lives.
Right,
So yeah,
right.
that's that book. The other book I published is about victimhood essentially, and I published that book because I became appreciative of how intolerant I was of the victim syndrome that I was seeing in others, also not realizing that it was reflecting quite a bit about myself. So yeah, that's why the other book.
Thank you. Very good. Very good. Madam, deep diving into the subject, let's just look at when we speak of the universal law, what do you actually mean by
Yeah, David, if there's one way I can kind of put it all together is to use the analogy of a game. Do you play any games, by the way? Indoor,
that?
outdoor games, board games? Yeah, my family and I love them. But I suppose most people are into these video games these days. But I just want people to try and imagine playing a complex game, something like chess, for example, without actually knowing the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll start off making a couple of moves. They seem right, but not before long, you find yourself stuck. You're frustrated, and you find yourself, damn, I'm losing, and I don't even know why I'm losing. And then every time you think you've figured something out, what happens? The game just throws another challenge your way. Now you
Mm-hmm.
really get confused, you're overwhelmed. But what if I handed you the rule book?
Mm.
Suddenly, you're going to understand the objectives, the strategies. You're going to know how to navigate the challenges. And you start playing with confidence. You become creative and you've got a clear sense of purpose. And of course, you're not going to win every time. But what
Yeah.
happens is you know how to adjust, you learn, and you keep moving forward. Life is very much like this game. And the rules that govern it are what we call the natural laws of the universe. So these laws are essentially divine principles. They guide our interactions, they guide the outcomes of our thoughts, our words, and our actions. And I think the thing to understand is that the laws are not there to restrict or limit us, but they're there to ensure that life, that the universe is in balance, that there is harmony, and that there's order. So if you think about that game of life is the game, the complex game. It's very much like life. If you don't understand the laws and you don't apply them in your life, you become stuck, frustrated, confused, and overwhelmed. But the minute, just like with the game, the minute you understand the laws and apply them, you actually start playing the game of life the way it was designed to be played, consciously, intentionally, and also with a deep connection to the divine wisdom.
Yeah.
So, put simply, when you understand and align with these divine principles, life just seems to flow more smoothly. You start seeing, which is what I started seeing, the connections between my inner world and the experiences I was having. I started realizing that, hey, reality is not random. It's just a reflection of the intentions and the energy that I'm busy putting into the world moment to moment. So, yeah, just as playing by the rules of a game allows us to fully engage and enjoy the game. When we live in alignment with these divine laws, it allows us to navigate life, with ease, with purpose, with joy. Yeah.
So
So, if
when we talk of this universal law, you've got this game of life here. When we talk of the
mm,
universal laws, how many of them are there?
well, there are quite a number of them. I think there's over 100 of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But all you need to do is confine yourself to either 7 or 12. I use 12 of them in the
Mm-hmm.
mastermind. And that is more than enough for you to be
Mm-hmm.
able to really engage with life fully and live a really meaningful and fulfilling life.
Good. Now, understand in a mastermind we can run the 12, but because we have a time constraint of an hour,
Mm,
we're only probably going to touch about four, if not five, of these particular ones, which I'm going to work with you and hopefully could talk on the most important, cascading down to the second, third, and fourth. And the
mm.
rest people could actually attend your mastermind. When do you run that, and what's the process that they can go through to get to know
Yeah,
that?
so in my Instagram account, there is a link.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's if you click on that link, you'll get to Laws of the Universe. And in there, you will actually find the link to register for the mastermind.
Okay, good, good. So, gentlemen, ladies out there, keep an eye for that Maryam's Instagram account to register for the mastermind sessions. Moving on, what is it that we need to start off with in the whole bit of the laws of the universe, from your perspective, the most important, number one?
Yeah, yeah. I think for me, David, the most important one is the law of divine oneness. I think this is
Mhm.
foundational. It actually is the foundation of all the other laws. Um, and what this law essentially says is that, you know, everything, it's understanding who we are, that we all come from the same source, for one. Whatever that source is, you may have a name for it, God, Allah, whatever it is, the divine intelligence, the universe. And if we are all from the same source, it means everything is connected. You and I, people are connected. We are also connected to the animals, to the plant kingdom. Everything is from the same source, and it just makes common sense that everything is connected. And when we understand, when we have a real awareness of this oneness, kind of think of it as the ocean. You've got this vast ocean in front of you, and you look at the waves, and each wave kind of looks separate for a moment, but yet they never ever apart from the ocean itself. And this is
Mm.
what this law reminds us, that every person, but it's not just the person, it's your thought, it's your actions. That's also part of this one huge, massive, infinite field of energy, of intelligence. And also understanding that because we are one, when you, for example, smile at someone, that smile, that energy is rippling out towards everything and everyone else in the world. When you gossip or judge, that same energy is also busy rippling out because of our oneness. So every thought you have is touches the collective. And for me, that brings an awareness of my responsibility, not only to myself and my own life, but understanding that whatever it is I think and do is actually, I can't see it, it's not visible to me, but it is impacting the collective. And if I may just go on about this law, is
Please.
yeah, it reminds us that we're never acting in isolation as well, too. That the world changes when we change, but it also reminds us of our interconnectedness. And if I can use just the example of, I don't know if you can remember what you had on your plate for your last meal. Um, but if you think of that meal on your plate, every grain, fruit, vegetable, all of it began with a seed. And that seed, just think about it, is a miracle of encoded intelligence. There is a power beyond our understanding that has coded that seed to become that fruit, that vegetable. Now think about when the seed was sowed. There were farmers, laborers. They watered it. They woke up early morning, giving up so much of their own lives, dirt under their nails, to plant that seed. Then there was the sunshine, the rain, the pollinators, the bees, the butterflies. All of them had a part in bringing this food to life. And if
Mm.
your meal was animal based, those animals were fed. They were sheltered, they were cared for, hopefully with compassion. But
Mm.
we also have to remember those animals, their lives, just like ours, had value. So, yes, there was a sacrifice. So, we've got the farm workers, the veterinarians, the butchers, the transport. We've got this whole network that played a role in bringing that food to your place. The processing, the cooking, the chefs, the spices from all over the lands, fuel, electricity. So, yeah, someone stocked it on the shelves, another person scanned it, and yet another grew it. But you earned money to purchase that food. And I don't even want to go into the network of people that were involved in how you earned your money. But now your body digests this food. And think about this remarkable body, because I'm reminding people of the divine intelligence behind everything. There's a system, our body is a system of intelligence beyond our conscious control. It breaks
Mhm.
down this energy into nutrients, and those foods become your thoughts, your actions, your heartbeats. That food becomes you. So yeah, the deep realization is that, it's not just food, it's everything. food on your plate. It's just not the fabric that you're wearing. It's not the furniture, just the furniture in your home, the bedding, the roof over your head. It's a network of lives, seen and unseen, that are all woven to give you this amazing life that you have. So we are
Now,
not isolated. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
just finish your
No,
last
no, no, no.
sentence.
No, all I just
Yeah,
wanted to say is for us
yeah,
to appreciate just how deeply connected we are, not just to each other, but to the earth itself. And of course, this divine, infinite intelligence that just orchestrates all of this. That's the law of divine
right.
oneness.
In such a divided world, how
Mm.
can we actually genuinely feel and live and be aware of this oneness? How do we experience that? What's the impact?
Yeah. You know, the most important thing is, David, is awareness, um, and is asking ourselves questions. And the questions we should be asking ourselves throughout our lives is, who am I? That's the eternal question that's been asked for
Mm,
centuries. Who
mm,
am I? And to understand the essence of who we are and what gave rise to this essence. There's an intelligence, whether you want to believe in a God or not, but everybody will agree that there is an intelligence way beyond our understanding. We just need to look around us. Just look around,
yeah,
just see the beauty, the harmony, the order that you see around us. What's orchestrating all of that? And then the next question is, why am I here?
mm,
Why am I here? Um, I'm here to evolve, to grow, period. I'm here for this divine intelligence to give expression of itself through me. And we can find different ways of developing that awareness. People may find it through their faiths, they find it just being in nature, they find it in silence, in contemplation, in meditation. But for me, the essence is that when the world gets to appreciate, because all the so-called evils that we see in the world comes from a mentality of separation. And as long as you're creating separation through comparison, through labeling, through judgment, you are creating division.
right, right. Understand.
And we have to be
Um,
appreciative of how we're doing that, even at an individual level.
right, right. Understand. Now, with the understanding of this, we need to now skim to the next law, primarily because of a time factor. I'm keeping an eye on the watch. What would be
Sure.
the second most significant law that you will pull out of the whole basket?
Yeah, and it's probably the law of, and of course, this is the most popular law, probably the most misunderstood, by the way. It's the law of vibration and attraction. You know,
Yes.
we hear
Mm-hmm.
the word everything is energy. But what does that really mean? What that means is that everything we see, we touch, the pen you've got in your hand, if you do have one, the chair you're sitting on, everything, whether even if it appears static, but everything is made up of the same fundamental atom, if you want to call it, which we call energy. They are atoms that are constantly, if we look at ourselves and everything else under a magnified a microscope, you will see these atoms in motion. Even a mountain that appears stationary is in motion. Now, so everything is made up of energy that is vibrating. These atoms are vibrating at different frequencies, different speeds, different patterns. But the important thing to understand is, to understand this law, is it means that your emotions, your thoughts, and your words are also energetic signals that you are
Mm,
constantly putting out. So you kind of have to think of yourself as a walking transmitter. You broadcasting energy through the way you think, the way you feel. But the important thing about this law is to understand that you're not only broadcasting, emitting energetic signals through your thoughts, your words, your actions, you're also receiving them.
mm,
And you will receive in like what it is you're busy transmitting. In other words, you will attract experiences that matches the signal you're putting out. So if you, for example, you consciously shift your mood, you're shifting this magnetic field around you. So let's put this practically. What does this mean when we talk about energy? Because we really need to understand energy to understand this law.
yes.
If you walked into a room that is filled with people that are angry, arguing, you know, throwing hateful remarks at each other, and you walk into that room, you are going to feel that tension. That tension that you're feeling is energy. And that is energy that's been emitted by all these people. And you receiving that energy as well, and that can in fact affect your mood. You start feeling low, you start feeling heavy. The same thing is if you smile at someone, you
Yeah.
pass a stranger, you offer a compliment and you smile. I mean, you know how that feels. That's a good feeling. That's an uplifting feeling. That's energy. But you're not only changing your own energy, uplifting your own vibration, you're uplifting the vibration of the person that you've given the, passed the smile onto, given the compliment onto.
Mm.
When you dwell in gratitude, your vibration rises, and you're going to be attracting more to be grateful for. So, this law reminds us that every thought, word, action has energy and that you are transmitting it all the time. And the important thing is to understand that you are going to be attracting energy of like circumstances, people, experiences. If your energy is low, if your mood is low, you get up in the morning and your mood is pretty low, you've got a really down thought. What does your day look like? It feels awful. And you think, damn, I'm having a real bad day. Hell, you put out that the minute you woke up and you're busy
Yeah.
attracting it. You didn't get out of the wrong side of the bed. You just got on the wrong side of your thoughts, low energy thoughts that you were
Mm.
putting out. And of course, you're catching those experiences throughout your day. So, vibration, that's the feeling part of your energy, the
Right.
emotional part. So,
Right.
I always say your good day isn't random. It's when your energy is aligned. Joy feels light and open, fear is heavy and closed. You can sense vibration. You don't have to understand the physics of it, or you just need to feel it. But know that what you are feeling, you are emitting, and you're busy attracting into your life. So, your mood, your attitude, your mindsets, they are your vibrations. And you can also tell your vibration by the quality of what you attract. Peaceful people and opportunities means you've got a high frequency. And if you're surrounded by drama and struggle, oh, check the vibrational frequency that you're busy putting out. It's probably a low one.
Yeah, Maryam, we need to explain to the public out there. We talk about this vibration. Now, is
Mm.
there somewhere that they can understand on a continuum? If you can just express the low vibrations going from one area and some emotions that it's covering, then
Yeah.
the midpoint and the maximum. If you can just talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah. So for example, David, when you've lost something, your career, a loved one,
Mm. Mm.
you feel grief.
Yeah.
But when you're stuck in grief probably has a very, and we can measure these vibrational frequencies of our emotions, by the way.
Yeah.
They plot on a chart. Grief and guilt and shame are sitting way down there, right at the
Hmm.
bottom. And that is why people who are stuck in those emotions lead such miserable lives. That's why depression sets in for those people. And that's why these people do not even want to live anymore. It's that low, that's the impact of that low vibrational frequency. Or, but what you can do is when you, and this is where the other laws help you, when you raise yourself out of your grief and you see purpose in that loss, um, and you see the lessons that come out of it, you are gradually busy raising your vibrational frequency. Um, you start feeling joy at the experience that you had. You feel gratitude for the lessons that's come out of the experience that you've had. And with that, your vibrational frequency rises. And when you start feeling gratitude and you see the lessons, your experiences around you start changing. Because, of course, you're going to be attracting opportunities to uplift other people's lives, learn through your grief and your loss, and start using that to start adding value to the lives of others. And now, through that, and the more you raise your vibrational frequency, the more these opportunities come your way to bring about change. And remember, our lives are not just about ourselves, we're interconnected. And what we're putting out there is busy impacting the rest of humanity. So, understanding, and like I say, it's feeling, when you're in a low mood, but there are things that you can do to shift that vibrational frequency.
Right.
Gratitude, as I mentioned, is one huge one. When you forgive, start holding on to resentment and anger and shift into forgiveness. Watch how your vibrational frequency rises and how your experience of life rises. You know, inspiring conversations, books that uplift you, podcasts. God, we've got this array of things out there. And it reminds us to be very conscious and intentional of what it is we listen to and what it is we watch. Because remember, we also receive in those frequencies, which will impact our own frequencies. But for me, the beautiful thing is, whether you're using music, gratitude, your prayers, meditation, being out in nature, these little shifts in our emotion will change everything in our lives. And yeah, that for me is one of the most important things. It doesn't have to be major shifts.
Yeah, Mary, when a person gets into, say, for example, he gets up in the morning, like what you explained, and
Mhm.
he's got this poor mood and in a state that is pathetic, with a poor want of a better word. Now, what can he do or she do to shift that? What is one or two little steps? I know you've
Yeah.
explained gratitude, but I just want to
Mhm.
see something simple that they can do a break and move up.
Yeah. The first thing is, for me, I never get out of bed immediately.
Hmm.
I become very conscious of the fact, oh my God, I'm alive, and I'm
Hmm.
breathing. And I put
Yeah.
my hand out next to my husband, and he's alive and he's breathing. And then I'm able to move. I have this remarkable body that can carry me. And I realized that anything could have happened during my sleep. I mean, I'm a doctor. I know how people have strokes during their sleep. And suddenly they can't move a limb, and they can't talk. But gratitude is phenomenal. Is don't get out of your bed without being grateful for just that breath of life, the very fact that you are breathing.
Mhm.
Um, and then you will actually notice that you become more open to being grateful to other things in your life. You just have to start off with one little thing. Just start off with one little thing. And then, get into practices, a period of silence. Just
Hmm.
that silence alone that connects you to this divine intelligence that is orchestrating all of this. Um, Meditation, whatever prayers it is that you use, um, journaling, whatever it is that connects you to the essence and the beauty of life and what life has to offer you. That's the way to start. You've got to have a morning ritual. And
Yes.
David, you run MRM and the Fire to Wire practice that literally takes people through these rituals early hours of the morning, 5:30 here
Hmm.
in South Africa. But it's that ritual that sets you up for a day of clarity, for a day of focus, for a day of purpose, peace, and joy. You need those rituals to start us off with. But if you
You
go
see,
to bed first of all with your problems and you get up with your problems, hell, you're going to be attracting more problems throughout the day.
exactly, exactly. You know that little bit that you just mentioned, you don't hop out of it. That's exactly what I do. And many that I've been working with do the same. For at least 5 to 10, 15 minutes before you do anything, is to still lie in bed and provide that gratitude. First, as you said, the breath of air, you're able to breathe, you're able to touch somebody, you're able to feel, would do a body scan. And these are simple things, guys, out there that you can get into to give that gratitude. And what does it do, Maryam? When it scales up your frequency and turns it around such that you are in a different state. Am I correct?
Absolutely. And remember, we just think of yourself, you're broadcasting every nanosecond, you're emitting these emotional signals.
Right.
But you're busy drawing them back to you in kind, whatever kind, not exact, but that's when your day becomes a real good day. And it's not randomly that your days become good. You have put out the energy and you're attracting that same kind of energy back into your life in all kinds
Fabulous,
of
fabulous.
ways.
Great, thank you so much. Let's move on to the next law, according to you, that you feel would actually help quite a lot of people out there. The third most
Yeah.
important.
And I think, yeah, is linked to this is the law of cause and effect. We all know that saying, whatever you sow, you will reap. I mean, we
Yeah.
know that. We repeat it over and over.
Yeah.
So, again, this law is a simple principle that says nothing happens by chance. In other words, every effect in your life has a cause, whether it's visible or invisible. It's kind of, you go plant tomato seeds, you're not going to grow roses, period. That's the story of life. In life, if you plant, if you, well, believe it or not, David, people will plant tomato seeds
And expect something
and
else.
yes, and think, why the hell? I mean, why I wanted mangoes? Why am I getting tomatoes? But it's the same in life. If you plant kindness, if you plant
Mm.
patience, if you plant integrities, those energies will return to you in some form or the other. Treat people with respect. What happens? Doors open more easily for you. Gossip, complain. Hey, guess what? You're going to find more to complain about through your day, and that gossip is just going to draw negativity to your way. So, we were talking about our actions, our thoughts, and our actions. You must think of them as seeds, and
Mm.
life is going to mirror back the harvest to you. Treat people kindly. You'll find kindness in reality. When you react harshly, you go into this room where the tension is high and people are arguing, and you go and react harshly. Hey, guess what? Life is a feedback system. And the tension is just going to grow further and further and get completely out of hand. And before you know it, you might even be having fist fights in the room. So, the thing I think I'm trying to make is that it's not punishment. The effect in your life, it's not punishment, it's a reflection. It's about saying, what is this teaching me? Because it's come into your life. You actually drew it into your life for a purpose because there is a lesson that you need to learn. There may be something in you that you need to heal. So if we can just change that around and start being responsible, and this brings in the whole issue of responsibility. It's saying, responsibility is saying, I have the power to change my results. Yeah, this is what it is at the moment. I accept that this is what it is. I also, that acceptance, you need that acceptance first, is saying, at some level or the other, I created this. Um, I often think about this property that came up with an opportunity that came up for me to purchase a property many years ago. And I mean, I could have got it in a pretty upmarket uh, suburb today, and I could have got it really for virtually next to nothing. But fear drove me to
Mm.
turn away from this opportunity, and I chose not to buy it. Um, but of course, yeah, I felt it afterwards. I mean, that could have been an incredible income for me, so income for me. But I also learned from it. And that's the thing about it, is that next time the opportunity comes, I can choose differently. And that's what we should say to ourselves. Even though you don't like the effect in your life now, but say, I still have the power to change my results. I can choose differently next time. You think about all the failures and all the mistakes in your lives. Yes, those are the effects, but they're also lessons. They hold such incredible lessons for our growth. And that's our purpose for being here. We had to grow, to evolve. So, you may have sowed the wrong seeds and you get in the harvest you don't want, but there are lessons that come with that. Look at those effects, find the lessons in them. Otherwise, what you're going to be doing, you're going to get yourself stuck in blame. Poor me, I'm the problem. I shouldn't have done this. I'm bad. They the problem. They shouldn't have done this. They are bad. So, with this law also comes responsibility, which is empowering. It puts us in the driver's seat. Blame, it's heavy, low vibration, it paralyzes us, it keeps us stuck in guilt and shame. So that's the other beautiful thing about this law. You don't say, why did this happen to me? You understand why it did because of this law. And you also understand is, what can I learn or do differently next time? And that shifts all our mistakes and failures into amazing teachers instead of burdens that we tend to want to see them as.
That's interesting. It reminds me, as you're talking, a thought comes to my mind. I think in one of our conversations, or in the group conversation, I recall bad things happen to people not seeing challenges as an opportunity but as a punishment.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
if only they could turn that around, is the point we make. Now, it's easy to say, but hard to do.
Yeah.
What are some suggestions that you would give here? for an individual to look at it and say, strong enough, I need to shift this? Did you come up with
Yeah.
one or two?
And I think again, it starts off with an awareness and understanding about life. And it takes us back to that initial question: who am I, but why am I here? It's about growth. Life is about growth. And growth is not comfortable. That is something that we need to really get in touch with and begin to appreciate. Because challenges, as you mentioned, not punishment, but they're opportunities to evolve. So,
Mm.
the only way is through the awareness and assuming responsibility for your life, assuming responsibility for the outcomes in your life. But the only way you can do that is understanding why I'm here. I'm here to grow. Okay. And the only way I can grow is it's going to be through discomfort. Growth does not happen in comfort. The challenges I'm experiencing is hell, crap. I don't like them. They're uncomfortable, but they're not punishments. And for me, it's constantly remembering that this divine intelligence that is orchestrating everything in the universe is always doing everything in my best interest. Always. Not easy to understand, but David, if you look at your life, just people just need to look back on their lives. Look at these so-called bad things that have happened in your life. But if you go back and you look, you will see that those things have actually, at some level or the other, awakened something within you. Whether it was compassion, some form of resilience, you will notice that you came out of it differently. If we just take the time to look back, you will see that you were not the same person depending on how you responded to that situation.
Mm.
And it's saying, okay, so that's what happened. This is how I responded. I don't like where I am now. I don't like it. Let me go back. What could I have done differently then? Just a simple thing like that. What if I had done this instead of that? What would my life have looked like now? And you're not going back with regret. You're going back to see why and what are the lessons that I've learned. So you really have to have the awareness. You have to be constantly in touch with who you are and why you're here. Constantly. There shouldn't be a moment when we lose sight of the fact that we are here to grow. And
Yeah.
be aware that growth is never comfortable. If you're looking for comfort, um, then I won't say it's a bad thing. I don't call things good or bad, but do understand through the law of cause and effect, there is a consequence for living in comfort. There's an effect. You are planting a seed of comfort. Don't go and expect growth, you know, um, at the end of planting that seed of comfort. It doesn't happen.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
we really, and that law of cause and effect is really crucial to understand. Um, what have I planted here? Because what I'm seeing here is a result of what I planted. So what did I plant? Okay, so I don't like what I have here. What can I go and then? What do I have to plant to get to where I want to be and what I want to have in my life?
Right, right. I want to take back to a more serious scenario situation. When we talk about opportunities and cause and effect, what about in a drug addiction situation? How would
Mm, mm,
you get that individual to rationalize, or the family of that individual to rationalize this and apply
yeah.
this law of cause and effect?
Well, yeah. Well, it unfortunately is not just about being rational because our mind does not have the solutions to everything. But you're
Okay.
right. It does start with a cause, but the cause can often be very complex.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it can be as complex as something starting in childhood, um, unmet needs, pain that people may have been subjected to. And it's very difficult for a child who doesn't have the experience and the understanding to have that. But of course, the adults do. So if there isn't resolution of some issues in your childhood, you go on through life because you don't understand life, and you start seeking ways and means, unhealthy ways and means, to ease that pain that you've experienced. And unless there's an intervention somewhere in your life where someone comes along and perhaps teaches you, yes, this is what happened, and that's was the effect of what happened in your childhood. But again, there comes a point in your life when we assume responsibility and when we say, yes, that's what happened to me. What can I learn from it and what can I do differently next time? The problem with addiction is that it can go get to a point where it actually is a really, really disease, and it is a disease. Um, it's but like all other diseases, yes, it can be overcome. Uh, but there's the chemical part of that disease as well too that is not easy, which makes it just that more challenging. But we know the rule of life. When we get beyond those challenges, see the lessons. Because here's the thing about addiction and any other soft addictions as well thing, and any other patterns that are repetitive in our lives, whether it's in our relationships as well too. I've mentioned the fact that there are lessons in those challenges.
Yes.
Now, when you don't get the lesson, I always use the example, it's like when a mother is sitting with a child that is struggling with his maths, and the mom is very patient and very kindly says, it's okay, we're going to go over it again, and we'll go over it again and again until you get it. The universe says to us, if we don't get the lesson the first time, it's okay, Maryam, let's go over it again. And how does the universe let us go over it again? You get the same experience again. You know, the mom goes over that same maths problem again. You get the same experience again. And that's the universe saying to you, here's another opportunity for you to see the lesson, to see your need, what is missing in you, what you need to heal in you. And if you don't get it, the pattern repeats itself. And that's not the universe punishing you. That's the universe in divine love saying, I'm here with you. We're going to go over this again and again. And you may go over it again and again in lifetimes before you get the lesson. But it's not punishment. Every time we get given another chance and another chance that says, look at you, don't look outside of you, look within. There is something about you that needs to evolve, that needs to grow, and you're not getting it. So I'm just going over the lesson again and again with you. And I like seeing it that way. So
Good.
addiction is one of those. That's why we see the relapse.
Mm.
But it's also fighting the fact that it is a disease.
Mm.
And people have got two, it's very complex because they're dealing with a physical disease as well as all their, let me just call it stuff
Associate.
that has
Yeah.
been contributing and leading to this. But like everything else in life, it can be overcome. And I have seen, I have seen this one gentleman 30 years on really, really heavy stuff. And today he's developing programs on addiction for the University of Cape Town. Remarkable. And that's, by the way, shifting that vibration and changing that energy.
Mm.
But it doesn't happen overnight. It's not a matter of saying, listen, you get over yourself, you're ruining your life, you're ruining your family's life, you're ruining society. It's not as simple and as straightforward as that. Um, and the important
Mm.
thing is to understand, just if I can just add this one, and we probably touch with it in the law of
Sure.
polarity, understand that at the end of each spectrum, you will see love and hate and good and evil, whatever it is. Don't condemn the one end because that other, each of them holds the potential to be the other.
Yes.
So the problem with people with addiction is they see themselves as bad. They really see themselves as bad and as evil and as not deserving of society's love or understanding. So, but built in that, don't judge it because now you're lowering your vibration again. That's what society
Mm.
does. They judge, they condemn. And if you judge and condemn yourself, what are you doing? You're just lowering your vibration even further.
Yeah.
And that's why
Yeah.
the repeat patterns. Anyway, yeah.
And that's the key point for the audience out there. They've got to make sure they use that vibrational chart, so to speak,
Yeah.
as a barometer to make sure that's constantly in the focus in which way they're swinging. That
Yeah.
is your GPS, so to speak.
Yeah. And be wary that you're not judging yourself,
No, exactly.
self blame,
Yeah,
because all you're doing is you're lowering your vibrational frequency even further
mm,
when you do that. And this is
very
where
true.
self love and compassion for self and understanding for self is so important. Irrespective of what your life is reflecting to you, you
Yeah,
have to be compassionate and understanding of yourself.
good. Maryam, we're running out of time. I need you to move on to the
Yeah.
next.
Oh, sure, sure, sure.
So, what's the
Uh,
next one on the agenda?
let's
The
do,
next.
at least we must do the law of relativity. Because the law of
Okay,
relativity is about perspective.
okay,
It
let's go.
teaches us, put simply, that nothing has meaning until you compare it to something else. In other words,
Hmm.
and we're busy talking about this now. Now, no experience is good or bad until you're comparing it to something else. So, a problem in your life is only heavy relative to your viewpoint, to your perspective. You know, this hill you're walking up seems so freaking steep until you start seeing the mountain behind it, and then suddenly, hey, damn, I can do this. This isn't as steep at all. So, our problems are not absolute. So, let me give you an example, just in terms of perspective.
Mm.
Imagine you lose your job. You've now lost this job. Your family's dependent on you. And the first thing that happens, and you think, oh my God, I've got bills to pay. There's the children's school fees. There's the bond. I don't know what's going to happen to us. And you give yourself some time and you understand, well, wait, hold a minute. There's this law that says what happens in my life, I give meaning to things because I'm comparing it to something or something else. And then you suddenly start thinking, you know what, I was never happy in this job. Um, I've always wanted to move into some other avenue. Maybe this is my time. Maybe this is my true calling. So the loss, yeah, is pushing you towards something else. So your initial perspective might have been, oh my God, this is it, we're done for. I remember a patient who had to appear before the disciplinary meeting. She hadn't even appeared yet. And she came into my rooms and she was talking about she and her family on the streets and God only knows what. And she hadn't even been to the disciplinary hearing. That's a perspective until we got her to change her perspective about it. So you've got the one perspective, you've got the one event, the loss of the job, and you've got the different perspectives. That's it. I'm done for. We're going to be struggling. We're not going to be paying the bills. And the other perspective is, well, wait a minute. This is an opportunity. I've always wanted to do this. I've never been happy in this job. So you've got the same event. You've got these different perspectives, and of course, you're going to have completely different outcomes. So if I can give you another example, at the airport, you've been there often, you miss a flight and you think, oh my God, I'm not going to make it for this meeting. I'm going to miss this. I'm going to miss that. And you sit there and you're fuming. And then there's an announcement made that, they'd actually picked up some engine trouble on the plane before it took off. And you say, oh my God, thank God. And yeah, your perspective transforms your frustration into gratitude. And the thing to understand is that comparison can both help or harm us, depending how we use it. If you're comparing yourself to someone and you're feeling small, that's not good. Um, you're draining yourself, you're shrinking yourself. You're looking down on someone and saying, oh my God, I'm so much better than what you are. Look what you're doing to the other person and yourself as well. But when you compare to measure growth, for example, and you look back at your life and you say, my God, just look how far I've come. um, or you compare and you think, oh my God, I've got so little. And of course, there's always someone who has much less than you have. And you think, God,
Mm.
thank God, I have so much to be grateful for. So I'm not saying comparison is all bad. When it's done with compassion and it's not to diminish, and it's not competitive, it is healthy. Um, so We all have our own perspectives on life, on events, on things. And our perspective is filtered through our own experiences, our own upbringing, our social conditioning. Your upbringing, your conditioning, your experiences are very different to mine. So, of course, we're going to have different perspectives. We filter in what we are seeing and experiencing through different filters. So, our perspective is going to be different. And it teaches us to be open to the perspective, understanding and open to the perspective of others. They seen it through their worldview, not through yours.
Mm,
You so it's just that reminder too, as well, um, that opens us to understanding people's perspectives, their worldviews, and that's how we learn and grow too. When we're open to the
yeah,
perspective of others, to the teachings that are out there, and not just confining ourselves to one teaching. And I was going to use the word faith as well too. I know some people feel strongly about confining themselves. I really believe I've grown so much by being open and understanding other faiths as well too, to supplement and support the faith that I have chosen to follow.
right, right.
In a nutshell,
Maryam, I also want you to cover an aspect of, if you remember, we spoke a couple of days back on the SOP because organizations are bringing in different philosophies from the parent organizations, and you are encountering that currently in Cape Town with the medical profession.
Yeah,
Can
so
you share
so
that with us?
it's not, yeah, sure. So medical practices, well, health in general, as it's become gazetted now, our government has established. I mean, it has been a while for around, but it's called the Office of Health um, and Safety
Right.
Compliance. And previously, they weren't stringent about general practice, primary practices being fully equipped for emergencies. For example, my practice has got emergencies, public and private, on my doorstep. I've never had to deal with them for the 48 years that I've been in practice. But now I've been told about all these standards, these SOPs that need to be in place, and there's the cost of all this equipment that I have to buy. So initially, my feeling is, oh my God, I mean, this is such an administrative burden. The finance seems so unjustified, and that is a lot of doctors. That's our initial response. And then I turned that around, and I said to myself, but you know what? First of all, I have to assume responsibility, yeah, because I should have had some form of audit that I'd been keeping on my practice throughout the years, ensuring that I've got all these documents in place. Yes, I didn't need any of the medication. I do keep most of almost all the medication, but not all the equipment because I've never needed to resuscitate someone in my practice. But now I have an opportunity to really um, uplift and upgrade my practice, ensure that I've got documentation that is really up to standard in place, that I've got a practice that is actually equipped to deal with. Yes, it might be 1 in a million patients that I'm going to need to do, but I'm upgrading my practice. And then I started looking at it from a very spiritual perspective. And I said, you know what? Every document that I'm going to draw up, I'm going to see it as an act of service. Every
Mm,
buck that I'm going to have to spend on this expensive equipment, including a defibrillator, which I'm probably never going to use, you would call it no return on investment there. But I am going to start looking at it as an act of service, to my patients, to humanity. And one day, if I'm going to pass that practice on to someone or sell it to someone, I can at least be proud of what it is I'm busy handing over to them. So that to me is such an incredible shift, a shift in perspective of seeing this as, oh my God, this administrative burden and this totally unjustified financial burden that's been placed on me, to seeing it very differently has made it. And I'm actually now quite excited. I've also realized that I need to delegate. I've employed a legal firm to start drawing up the documents for me and help me with drawing that up and setting that into place. Yeah, so it's changed, and my energy's changed, my vibration has changed, which is crucial if I am going to make this a success. Or, I've had colleagues who've decided, yeah, this is it, bugger this, I'm closing shop, done. I'm not putting myself through this.
I'm
Um,
going to deep dive into two areas here. Your feel factor when you made that shift mentally, that you're going to do something and it's something that you can play it forward for others to take on and run the practice, as opposed to how you thought before. That's the first thing. The second thing is, how did not just feel, but what did you do for your stress? And
Oh my
how
God.
did you work through that?
Yeah.
Because this is what the person out there should understand when they put all of this in sync.
Yeah.
Would you like to
Yeah.
share that, please?
David, first of all, if you haven't been engaging in practices for most of your life that
Mm,
prepares you for situations like this, it's not easy.
no.
Um, I Part of my life has been my morning rituals, meditation, silence, uh, and always engaging in material that is uplifting. And I've always had a very strong tendency towards spiritual development. So that was not something that happened overnight. It's years of practice. It's being consistent and disciplined in those practices. You're not going to go meditating, go into silence one day and think, voila, tomorrow any problem comes my way, damn, I'm going to be on top of it. No,
No.
it doesn't work that way. And that's the thing to understand. Our evolution is ongoing. You never really get to a point where you know it all and you're fully equipped. Yeah, there have been great sages who've done that. They very, 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 very few, the sages and the prophets. For us, it's for me, it is an ongoing process, and I can never ever afford to sit on my laurels with that process, because that's all you need to do. You sit on your laurels, your past uh, achievements, and guess what? You take the dip down because that's what life is like. It's the highs and the lows. Nothing out there is permanent. You've got to get accustomed to that. Your life goes through highs and through lows, and you've also got to know how to negotiate those highs and lows. Um, uh, know when to act, but you've got to be consistent in the practice that keeps you in touch with who you are, with why you're here, and with that divine intelligence that orchestrates all of that. You have to be constantly in touch with that. It's not going to happen overnight. And you
Excellent.
lose
And,
it.
and
If you don't hold on
exactly.
to it, you will lose it.
Yeah. And for those that are listening to this are wondering, my God, how do I get all of this? Let me just point out to you, MRM Mental Resilience Mastery does run these sessions, and they're all complimentary. It's philanthropic services that people like Maryam and many others are providing, Dr. Alka. So I would sincerely suggest you get into the website, mentalresiliencemastery.com, put your details in, and we'll connect with you and guide you into which of these areas you'd like to encompass yourself and work on and enlighten yourself. Mariam, we're running out of time. I want to give 2 to 3 minutes for the audience to have something to take away and munch over. So could you just come up with a bit of an exercise that they can work on whilst they're taking on from here, please?
Yeah. So, I think I've mentioned a couple of times the importance of awareness.
Mm,
And that's the starting point. You can't change what you're not aware of. You can't change your thoughts if you're not aware of them. So I would recommend that even as a start today, go home, pull out a journal, and just write down what were the thoughts and emotions that you experienced through this session. Just a simple thing as that. Taking the time and saying, it's very easy to journal what you did. So I did this and that this morning, and I went here and there, and I come to this and that. But the challenge is being able to actually name an emotion that you are feeling and write it down. Now, a lot of us are even ignorant in the language of emotions.
mm,
Pull out a book, spend 5 minutes, just get in touch. What was I thinking throughout this past hour, for example, that you were here? And what am I going to do about it? So we spoke about low thoughts that are low, that are negative, that are heavy, and we talk about the high ones. And ask yourself, what am I going to do about it? what is one little thing that I can do, one little thing that I can do to change that thought? Just one little thing or that feeling. I'm feeling low, I'm feeling depressed. One little thing that you can go and do right now after the session that will change that and uplift you. It's simple, it sounds simple, but all it requires is a little bit of commitment. Go and sit for five, and I will challenge you to just do it for 5 minutes. Pull out your journal,
Mm.
5 minutes. Go and sit and jot down thoughts and feelings that you've just had in the past hour. And if there's anything that you feel you need to change, just ask yourself, what is one little thing, you know? Can I just go up to my hubby and tell him, you know what? I love you and I'm so grateful for what you did for me. If you were holding an energy that was kind of lowish to that. Or send, hey, we're also good with our text messages, aren't we? Okay, that will also do. Just someone a text. And notice how you feel when you send that text that says, thank you, I love you, I care for you, I appreciate you. Do that. And then notice the difference in feeling, because what you feel is crucial. Never mind the physics of everything else. Just focus on what you feel. That's what I would recommend, David.
Fabulous, fabulous. Thank you so much. Before you even do that, I would recommend you go to the shop and buy a notebook if you don't have a journal.
Yeah, if you don't have it, first of all, get the book first and a pen. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Maryam. Thank you so much for your valuable time and truly appreciate your contribution in
Thank you,
enlightening
David.
people on the universal
Yeah.
laws. Hmm?
No,
Take care
thank
now.
you.
Have a
Thank you for
wonderful
the
night.
opportunity. Thank you.
Take
Thank
care
you.
now. Bye.